I promised in this class that party, I'd share with you 3 things that I learned about being a millionaire at 35 and broke and bankrupt by 38. One of those things is just let go of control. Let go of control of others. There was absolutely no way that I could control the market. I was definitely leveraging the market. I was doing my thing. I was doing amazing. Obviously, I had figured out how to get owner financing for properties. I had 55 investors that worked with me. They had shared their money with on some investments. But 2008 was kind of a surprise to a lot of people. Not some people, but some people it was. And I was really adamant about controlling this. You know, I wanted to hang on to all the properties that I had. And there was an incredible amount of desire to control everything. And I realized I wasn't in control of any of the outside situation that was happening. And because of that, the money and the lack of money actually controlled my every emotion. It controlled my day. It controlled how I slept or didn't sleep. All of a sudden, my phone was blowing up with all these collectors. They wanted their money. I didn't have any. And it was absolutely driving the way that I would think about myself, and the story that I had about myself was really negative. So there was nobody outside of myself that could have told, you know, even my mother, who was kind of dismayed at the whole event and, well, I told you so kind of thing. It wasn't even her conversation with me. It was more the conversation that I had about in my head. And it was all from the programming from when I was little. I had wanted so badly to prove to my mother, who had, I don't know how many times, called me stupid. She adopted that kind of silly phrase from her mother, and all of a sudden it was coming out of her mouth. And because I somehow interpreted it at a very deep core level, I felt that I was really stupid. I didn't know what I was doing, and I really wanted to overcome this belief system. I really didn't want her to think I was stupid, because I didn't want to think that I was stupid. I then, of course, put it into my programming that I was going to prove her wrong. And of course, that's why I became a real estate investor, because it's probably one of the hardest possible ways. Although so many people do make millions out of real estate investing, it is a really complicated adventure, and very stressful. There's an incredible amount of leverage that you have to constantly put through. You have to go, like, you'd have to see 100 properties to be able to even find one little tiny potential property. And of course, I was really dedicated. I worked my ass off. And so I understand what it's like to work really hard. But I was working really hard to prove somebody wrong. And that was where all my suffering came from. It wasn't working hard in a challenging way, in an exciting way, in a growing, in a positive way. It was working hard to prove somebody else wrong. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit more about. Why do we have this idea that we have to work really hard? So letting go of control of other people, for sure. That's the one lesson that I learned, because you know, you can't control other people. You can just be in this moment. You can be present right here, right now. And that's where you're free of whatever situation is happening outside of yourself. And it can be really chaotic. Obviously, from my story, you can tell it was very chaotic. And in being able to have gratitude for what is, right? I'm breathing. My arms move. Like I can walk. I can go feed myself. There's plenty of things in any possible scenario to be grateful. So being able to invite gratitude for whatever's happening outside of yourself with other people, and then let go of expectations of other people. Right? The bankruptcy court, I was so terrified to actually walk into the bankruptcy court because I had a lot of creditors, and I was petrified that they would all be there and criticizing me and demanding their money, etc., etc. And the irony was that it was a 2-year process, and we got to homestead the hotel, which in Texas, you're allowed to keep your home or personal home as long as you're paying the mortgage. And this mortgage was not the cheapest. It was a $15,000 a month mortgage. But the hotel was doing well enough to be able to pay it for itself. And I got to move in there. But that was we weren't sure whether I was going to have a home or a business or anything. I had no idea. Walked into the bankruptcy court, and the judge basically just looked at my file for not less than 5 minutes. And he just looked at it and said, yeah, you and everybody else in 2008. And he just signed it, and there was no creditors. Nobody turned up. It was like the weirdest kind of, crescendo of calm, and like, wow, that was what I was so worried about. So you can't expect what the expectation is or what the outcome is going to be. You just have to be, again, present with yourself, and centered, and let go of whatever happens with whatever. I mean, maybe you might be like not stressed about paying the bill next week. Believe me, there are bigger things than paying a bill. Like, obviously today, I absolutely love paying my bills, and I certainly don't have 97 mortgages. I actually just keep my bills very, very simple. It's very easy for me. I love having that kind of ease and grace around what I'm capable of, and invite in my life, and have lots of cash. And it's just like, that's the ease for me. But it hasn't always been that way, because obviously I've worked really hard, or not worked really hard, should be saying that. I've challenged myself to grow to this point where it is my life so much easier and more peaceful, and my story around money, internal story, is so much more joyful. And I realized that I wasn't stupid. I was really, really smart. And okay, yeah, it was kind of like getting into a car and getting into a pileup with everybody else in 2008. But it wasn't my fault. I just was driving just like everybody else. And that didn't equate to my stupidity. There are some things that I'm very inadequate about. There's things that, just don't come over to my house and expect me to cook anything. It's not that I can't. I can, but or drive anywhere. Driving is not a great skill of mine either. However, I have some really great skills, and I love sharing them. And so that's what's important, is figuring out what your soul's purpose is. What is your zone of genius? Spend time doing those things. And then don't let money control your personal emotions, right? If you think that money is going to bring you happiness, then you're going to be miserable. Right? Money doesn't bring you happiness. The things and the experiences may align with more joy and more passion and more excitement for who you are and who you identify yourself with, but that's just a means to an end. Right? There was a lot of greed. I wanted to have a lot of approval throughout that experience, and I realized that I am so much more than money, and you're so much more than money.